if the only thing standing between you and a radically bigger life is the size of your thinking, not your education, not your background, not your connections, not the economy, your thinking? Right now, somewhere in the world, someone with less experience than you is earning more than you, leading more than you, building more than you. Why? Because they decided to think bigger. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they aim too low. They ask small questions. They set safe goals. They negotiate cautiously. They invest timidly. They dream privately, but act conservatively. And then they wonder why life stays average. Here's the truth. You do not get what you want in life. You get what you believe you deserve. If you believe you deserve modest results, you'll unconsciously protect modest results. But if you truly decide that you are capable of building something extraordinary, your posture changes, your conversations change, your risks change, your income changes. Big thinking isn't fantasy, it's strategy. It's choosing to build assets instead of excuses. It's choosing investment over impulse. It's choosing growth over comfort. It's choosing contribution over consumption, because small thinking keeps you earning. Big thinking helps you build, and building is how you create wealth. Building is how you create freedom. Building is how you create legacy. So today, the real question isn't, can you succeed? The question is, are you finally ready to think big enough to deserve it? Because the moment your thinking expands, your life has no choice but to follow. Let me begin with a simple but life-altering truth. The size of your success is determined by the size of your belief, not your education, not your background, not your connections, not your luck, your belief. I have met brilliant people who live small lives. And I have met ordinary people with modest beginnings who built extraordinary futures. The difference was never intelligence. It was never talent. It was never opportunity. It was thinking. Small thinking produces small results. Big thinking produces big results. And thinking big is not about arrogance. It is about permission. Permission to believe you are capable of more. Permission to expect more from life. Permission to design a future that stretches beyond your current environment. The greatest barrier to wealth, leadership, and influence is not external limitation. It is internal doubt. Most people suffer from a quiet disease. I call it excusitis. I'm not ready. I'm not experienced enough. I don't have the right background. Our economy is uncertain. The market is too competitive. Excuses are socially acceptable lies we tell ourselves to protect comfort. But comfort has never built greatness. Let me tell you a story. There was a young salesman who constantly compared himself to others. He believed he wasn't as polished, as educated, or as charismatic as his competitors. He aimed low. He spoke cautiously. He hesitated to approach larger clients, and his income reflected his thinking. One day, his mentor told him something simple. You don't need to be better than everyone. You need to believe you can serve bigger. That shift changed everything. He stopped seeing large accounts as intimidating. He began seeing them as opportunities to deliver value. His posture changed. His voice strengthened. His actions expanded. Within a few years, his income multiplied. Nothing external changed first. His thinking did. Here is a principle you must engrave in your mind. Believe big, act big, and you will become big. Belief expands behavior. Behavior expands results. Results expand confidence. Confidence expands opportunity. This is a self-reinforcing cycle, but it begins with thought. Now let's talk about fear. Fear is the #1 destroyer of big thinking. Fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of failure, looking foolish. Fear shrinks ambition. It whispers, stay safe, but safety rarely produces financial freedom. If you want to build wealth, you must outgrow fear. And if thinking big is the engine of success, then negative thinking is the brake. And most people drive through life with one foot unconsciously pressing it down. Let me say something that may challenge you. You cannot build a big life with a small mental conversation. The dialogue you hold with yourself every day determines the scale of your results. Many individuals appear confident externally, but internally they rehearse limitation. I'm not as talented as they are. I'm too late to start. I've already missed my chance. What if I fail? These thoughts feel harmless. They feel private. But private thoughts produce public results. Your mind is like fertile soil. Plant doubt, you harvest hesitation. Plant confidence, you harvest action. And action is the currency of growth. Let us talk about belief management. Beliefs are not facts. They are interpretations reinforced by repetition. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not a good with money, you will avoid financial education. You will avoid investing. You will avoid negotiating salary, and your income will reflect that belief. But the belief came first. You must become a guardian of your mental input. Most people allow random information to shape their thinking. Negative news cycles, discouraging conversations, past failures replayed endlessly. You must take control. Big thinkers deliberately feed their minds with expansion. They read about possibility. They study success stories. They associate with forward-moving people. They rehearse empowering narratives. Here is a simple truth. Your environment shapes your belief, and your belief shapes your destiny. If you constantly expose yourself to small-minded conversations, you shrink unconsciously. But when you place yourself in environments of ambition, your thinking stretches automatically. Now let's confront criticism. Fear of criticism stops more ambition than lack of skill ever will. Many people aim small because they fear being judged for aiming big. They would rather fail quietly than risk public attempt. But consider this carefully. The world rarely criticizes those who play small. Why? Because small ambitions do not disrupt expectations. When you begin to think big, you may face resistance. Friends may question you. Colleagues may doubt you. Family may caution you. But remember this, a criticism is often the tax paid for growth. Big thinkers interpret criticism differently. They do not see it as a signal to shrink. They see it as evidence they are stretching. Now let's tie this directly to financial growth. If you aim to increase your income dramatically, someone may call you unrealistic. If you begin investing aggressively in your education, someone may say you are taking risks. If you start a business, someone may warn you of failure. But average thinking protects average results, and average results rarely produce financial freedom. Freedom requires courage. Courage requires belief. Belief requires deliberate thought management. Now let's examine another silent limiter. Worry. Worry is misdirected imagination. The same imagination that could build vision often builds fear. What if the investment fails? Or what if the business collapses? Or what if I lose money? But big thinkers flip the equation. Oh, what if it succeeds? Oh, what if it multiplies? What if this is the turning point? The mind will generate scenarios regardless. Choose the empowering ones. Worry consumes energy without producing progress. Planning produces progress without consuming unnecessary fear. If you fear financial instability, build a strategy. Emergency fund, diversified investments, skill expansion, multiple income streams. Strategy dissolves vague anxiety. Clarity reduces fear, and reduced fear increases bold action. Let's discuss self-respect. You must respect yourself enough to think big. Small thinking is often disguised self-doubt. When you undervalue yourself, you undercharge. When you undervalue yourself, you underperform. When you undervalue yourself, you underinvest in growth. Self-respect changes financial behavior. You invest in education. You demand fair compensation. You protect your time. You build assets rather than liabilities. Here is a powerful principle. Think highly enough of yourself to demand growth. Not arrogance, expectation. Expectation influences preparation. If you expect a large opportunity, you prepare differently. Preparation improves performance. Performance increases reward. Reward builds confidence. Confidence strengthens expectation. Now let's talk about language. The words you use daily shape belief. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, say, how can I afford it? Instead of, that's impossible. Ask, what would make it possible? Questions expand thinking. Statements close it. Big thinkers ask expansion questions. Small thinkers make limiting statements. Language directs attention. Attention directs effort, directs results. This applies in wealth building dramatically. If you constantly say money is hard to make, you unconsciously avoid ambitious financial moves. If you say a value creates income, you begin focusing on creating value. And value delivered consistently attracts compensation. Another principle to anchor here, where attention goes, income flows. Body, focus on scarcity. Scarcity expands. Focus on opportunity expands. Let me challenge you further. Are you thinking big enough about your earning capacity? Most people define their earning limit based on what they see around them, but markets reward value, not proximity. If you build rare skills, income expands. If you solve large problems, compensation grows. If you scale systems, wealth multiplies. The ceiling is rarely external, it is internal. And the moment you raise your internal ceiling, your actions begin to match it. In the next part, we will move from belief to behavior. How to convert big thinking into big action, how to eliminate procrastination, how to build decisive momentum, and how to transform expanded vision into tangible financial and professional growth. Thinking big without acting big is daydreaming. Vision without motion is illusion, and many people fall into this trap. They read powerful ideas, they feel inspired, they imagine a larger future, and then they wait. They wait for confidence. They wait for clarity. They wait for the perfect opportunity. But big success is not built by waiting. It is built by decisive action. Let me tell you something fundamental about momentum. Action cures fear faster than analysis ever will. You can think about starting a business for 5 years and still feel uncertain. Or you can take one small, deliberate step today, register a name, build a page, call a client, and suddenly uncertainty begins shrinking. Movement generates confidence. Confidence strengthens identity. Identity sustains movement. This is how big thinkers operate. They do not wait until they feel ready. They act into readiness. Let us confront procrastination directly. Procrastination is not laziness. It is often disguised fear. Fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of judgment. So we delay, but delay compounds negatively. Every postponed decision postpones growth. Every avoided call postpones opportunity. Every delayed investment postpones compounding. And compounding is the most powerful wealth-building force available to you. When you delay investing by 5 years, you are not just delaying 5 years of contribution, you are sacrificing exponential growth. Big thinkers respect time. They treat time as capital. They understand that action today is worth far more than action tomorrow. Here is a principle to anchor deeply. A speed builds confidence. Delay builds doubt. When you decide quickly and act intelligently, your mind interprets that as strength. When you hesitate repeatedly, your mind interprets that as weakness. Now let's talk about decision-making. Successful people are not always right, but they are decisive. Indecision drains energy. Energy drains motivation, drains progress. If you want to expand income, you must decide to expand it. Not vaguely, not someday. Decide to build skills that command higher compensation. Decide to pursue larger contracts. Decide to launch the venture. Decide to launch the venture. Decide to negotiate. And once decided, move. Even imperfect movement beats perfect planning that never begins. Now let's connect this to financial freedom in a practical way. Big earners think in terms of leverage. They ask, how can I multiply my effort? Instead of trading only time for money, they build assets. Skills are assets, businesses are assets, investments are assets, networks are assets. Assets work even when you rest. Time does not. So if you want big financial results, shift your thinking from earning to building. Building requires action. You cannot build passively. You must initiate. Let me share something important about courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. If you wait for fear to disappear, you will wait forever. But if you act while fear is present, fear weakens over time. The first negotiation feels uncomfortable. The 10th feels strategic. The first investment feels risky. The 20th feels calculated. Repetition normalizes growth. Big thinkers repeat courageous acts until they become habits. Now let's address productivity. Many people confuse busyness with progress. They fill their days with tasks but avoid the actions that truly expand income and influence. Big thinkers prioritize high-impact action. They ask, what is the one action today that will move me closer to my biggest goal? Often it is uncomfortable, calling a larger client, studying complex financial strategy, creating value at scale, having a difficult leadership conversation. Growth lives just beyond comfort. Comfort maintains the present. Discomfort builds the future. Another powerful principle. A big success requires big action, not busy action. Now let's examine something critical in wealth creation, calculated risk. You cannot grow financially without accepting some level of risk. But risk is not recklessness. It is informed courage. Study before investing. Plan before expanding. Research before launching. But after planning, move. Perfectionism is often fear wearing a suit. If you demand perfect certainty, you will miss opportunity. Markets move. Industries evolve. Windows open and close. Big thinkers act when probability favors them, not when certainty guarantees them. Let me challenge you directly. Are you taking actions consistent with the income level you desire? If you want executive compensation, are you building executive skills? If you want entrepreneurial freedom, are you building scalable systems? If you want investment growth, are you consistently allocating capital? Desire without aligned action is fantasy. Aligned action converts desire into reality. Now let's talk about energy. Big action requires big energy. Energy is influenced by physical health, mental clarity, and emotional optimism. Protect your energy. Sleep strategically. Exercise regularly. Feed your mind growth material. Limit exposure to negativity. Energy fuels execution. Execution fuels results. Fuel belief. 10. Belief fuels larger action. This upward spiral is the engine of extraordinary achievement. Before we move forward, ask yourself this. What bold action have I been postponing? What conversation? What conversation? What investment? What expansion? What skill development? And then ask, if I were thinking truly big, what would I do today? Write it down and act. Because the bridge between thinking big and living big is decisive, courageous, consistent action. In the next part, we will explore how to build confidence at scale, how to project leadership, command respect, expand influence, and develop the presence that naturally attracts opportunity and wealth. There is something powerful about a person who carries themselves with quiet certainty. They enter a room and the atmosphere shifts, not because they are the loudest, not because they are the most aggressive, but because they project belief. Belief in themselves, belief in their mission, belief in possibility, and belief is magnetic. If you want to think big, you must also learn to live big, to present yourself in a way that matches your ambition. Many people sabotage their growth not through lack of skill, but through timid presence. They speak softly about bold ideas. They apologize for their ambitions. They shrink in rooms where they should stand tall. Confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is alignment between your self-image and your behavior. If you see yourself as capable, your posture changes. Your voice strengthens. Your decisions sharpen, and others respond accordingly. The world often mirrors back the image you project. If you project doubt, you attract hesitation. If you project conviction, you attract trust. Trust attracts opportunity. Opportunity attracts income. Income, when managed wisely, builds wealth. Now let's talk about leadership presence. Whether you run a company, lead a team, or simply manage your own life, you are constantly influencing others, and influence begins with self-command. Control your emotions. Control your tone. Control your reactions. Big thinkers do not panic in uncertainty. They assess, they respond, they move. In business and investing, emotional control is a wealth multiplier. Markets fluctuate. Opportunities collapse. Negotiations stall. If you react impulsively, you lose leverage. If you respond strategically, you gain advantage. Here is a principle to remember. Calm thinkers make bold decisions. Emotional thinkers make expensive mistakes. Now let us discuss how to grow influence deliberately. Influence expands when you increase value. Value increases when you develop competence. Competence grows through disciplined learning. The market pays for rare and useful skills. If you want to think big financially, think about value creation. What problems can you solve that few others can? What skills can you master that command premium compensation? Average skills earn average pay. Rare skills earn exceptional income, but rare skills require commitment. Commitment requires belief. Belief requires vision. Vision requires big thinking. Do you see how it connects? Let's talk about visibility. Many talented individuals remain unseen because they hide their capabilities. Big thinkers do not hide. They share ideas. They publish insights. They volunteer for responsibility. They speak up in meetings. They propose solutions. Visibility creates recognition. Recognition creates advancement. Advancement creates income expansion. Silence rarely builds wealth. Contribution does. Now consider negotiation. One of the fastest ways to increase income is to negotiate boldly and respectfully, but negotiation requires confidence. If you believe you deserve growth, you ask for it. If you believe you bring value, you present it clearly, and if the answer is no, you refine and try again. Big thinkers do not internalize rejection as identity. They interpret it as feedback, refined strategy. Refined strategy increases success probability. Now let's connect leadership presence to financial freedom at a higher level. Wealth is attracted to those who can lead systems. Systems require people. People require trust. Trust requires credibility. Credibility requires consistency. Consistency requires discipline. Discipline is a byproduct of belief. If you believe your mission matters, you act consistently. If you act consistently, people rely on you. Reliability builds brand. Brand attracts capital. Capital invested wisely builds freedom. Let me challenge you directly, though. Are you presenting yourself in alignment with the future you want? If you desire executive leadership, do you communicate strategically? If you desire entrepreneurial freedom, do you think in systems? If you desire financial abundance, do you speak and act like an investor? You cannot expect seven-figure opportunities while thinking in five-figure limits. Now let's talk about expanding vision beyond yourself. Big thinkers do not only aim to earn more, they aim to contribute more. Contribution expands influence. Influence expands opportunity. Opportunity expands wealth. If you focus only on money, your thinking narrows. If you focus on value creation, your income expands naturally. Here is a powerful financial principle. When money follows value at scale. If you create value for one person, you earn modestly. If you create value for thousands, you earn significantly. If you create value for millions, wealth multiplies. So think beyond transaction. Think in terms of scale. Can your knowledge be packaged? Can your service be systematized? Can your product be expanded? Can your leadership develop leaders? Scale requires thinking beyond daily effort. Scale requires designing systems that operate without constant supervision. This is where thinking big transforms income into wealth. Because wealth is not just high earnings. Wealth is freedom from constant labor. Freedom is built when assets produce income. Assets are built through bold vision and disciplined execution. Before we move forward, I want you to reflect deeply. If you doubled your belief in yourself starting today, how would your posture change? How would your conversations change? How would your pricing change? How would your pricing change? How would your investment decisions change? Most people underestimate the financial impact of confidence. Confidence accelerates negotiation. Confidence attracts partnerships. Confidence invites opportunity, and opportunity compounds. In the next part, we will explore how to build a powerful success environment, how to eliminate toxic influences, build networks that elevate you, and design a life that continually stretches your thinking and your income. You cannot consistently think bigger than your environment for long. Sooner or later, the room you sit in will shape the ceiling you believe in. If you constantly sit among small ambitions, small conversations, and small expectations, your thinking shrinks quietly, almost invisibly. But if you intentionally place yourself in rooms where ideas are expansive, where standards are high, where growth is normal, your thinking stretches without force. Environment is silent persuasion. It does not argue with you. It does not debate you. It conditions you. That is why building a success environment is not optional. It is strategic. Let us examine what makes an environment powerful. First, conversations. What do the people around you talk about most? Problems? Limitations? Complaints? Scarcity? Or do they talk about ideas, opportunities, investments? Expansion conversation is a thermostat for ambition. If your daily dialogue revolves around survival, you will think in survival terms. If your daily dialogue revolves around growth, you will begin thinking in growth patterns. Big thinkers are intentional about conversational diet. They reduce exposure to negativity. They eliminate chronic pessimists from close influence. They choose associations that elevate. This does not mean arrogance. It means protection. You guard your financial capital carefully. Guard your mental capital the same way. Now let us talk about association and wealth. Income levels tend to reflect peer groups, not because of coincidence, but because standards normalize behavior. If everyone around you spends impulsively, discipline feels abnormal. If everyone around you invests consistently, discipline feels expected. Standards shape decisions automatically. Raise your standards, and behavior adjusts. This is why masterminds, mentorship groups, and professional networks accelerate income growth. They recalibrate normal. Suddenly, earning more is not rare, it is common. Building assets is not unusual, it is expected. Negotiating boldly is not aggressive, it is professional. When normal shifts upward, your results follow. Here is a principle worth engraving. Your income rarely exceeds the expectations of your closest circle. Choose your circle wisely. Now let's discuss physical environment. Cluttered spaces often reflect cluttered thinking. Disorganized finances reflect disorganized habits. Big thinkers build order. They create systems for tracking income and investments. They design productive workspaces. They remove distractions deliberately. Order reduces friction. Reduced friction increases focus. Focus increases productivity. Productivity increases income. Income invested wisely increases wealth. Your surroundings either support or sabotage your ambition. Design them carefully. Let us examine digital environment as well. In today's world, your digital exposure shapes belief dramatically. If you scroll endlessly through negativity, outrage, and trivial entertainment, your mental energy dissipates. But if you curate your feed with financial education, leadership insight, and opportunity awareness, your mind remains oriented toward expansion. Attention is currency. Where you spend it determines what grows. Spend attention on growth, and growth expands. Spend attention on distraction, and mediocrity deepens. Now let's elevate this further. Environment also includes expectations you set for yourself. What do you expect from your workday? Do you expect productivity? Do you expect advancement? Do you expect skill expansion? Or do you expect survival? Expectations influence preparation. Preparation influences performance. Performance influences reward. Reward reinforces expectation. If you expect a modest future, you unconsciously limit preparation. If you expect extraordinary growth, you prepare accordingly. Preparation is invisible wealth building. Skills developed quietly often produce loud results later. This is especially true in financial freedom. Most people focus on income today and ignore skill accumulation, but skills are income seeds. Develop a high-value skill, and you increase earning leverage. Develop multiple skills, and you create income flexibility. Flexibility reduces vulnerability. Reduced vulnerability increases confidence. Confidence expands risk tolerance. Risk tolerance expands opportunity. Opportunity expands wealth. Let's address something subtle but critical. Toxic environments often disguise themselves as comfortable. They do not challenge you. They do not stretch you. They accept your current level. Comfort is seductive. But comfort has a ceiling. Growth requires slight discomfort. A room where you are the least experienced often grows you fastest. A conversation that challenges your thinking expands you more than one that confirms it. If you are always the most ambitious person in the room, your growth may slow. Seek rooms that stretch you. Stretch produces expansion. Expansion produces transformation. Now let's talk about modeling. One of the most powerful environmental forces is example. If you see someone who looks like you, came from where you came from, and built extraordinary wealth or influence, your belief increases instantly. Representation expands imagination, expands ambition fuels effort, effort builds achievement. Study models of success intentionally, not to envy, but to extract patterns. How did they think? How did they invest? How did they scale? How did they handle setbacks? Patterns leave clues. Clues reduce uncertainty. Reduced uncertainty increases boldness, and boldness accelerates financial growth. Before we move into the final stage, I want you to reflect on this deeply. If you redesigned your environment over the next year, your conversations, associations, physical space, digital exposure, and expectations, how dramatically would your thinking expand? And if your thinking expanded daily, what would happen to your income over 5 years? Most people attempt to change results without changing environment. That rarely works. Change the environment, and results shift naturally. In the final part, we will bring everything together: belief, action, leadership, environment, wealth creation, and explore how to live permanently at a higher level of thinking, earning, and contributing. We have talked about belief. We have talked about action. We have talked about confidence. We have talked about environment. Now we arrive at the final and most important realization. Thinking big is not an event. It is a lifestyle. It is not something you turn on when opportunity appears. It is something you practice daily until it becomes your default setting. Most people visit big thinking occasionally. They feel inspired at a seminar. They read a powerful book. They watch a motivational talk. For a moment, their imagination expands. Then they return to their normal routines, their normal conversations, their normal expectations, and their thinking shrinks again. But the magic of thinking big only works when it becomes permanent. Permanent expansion of self-image. Permanent expansion of expectation. Permanent expansion of vision. Let me ask you something deeply personal. What kind of life would you build if you truly believed there were no internal limits? Not reckless fantasy, but disciplined, strategic expansion. Would you pursue larger leadership roles? Would you start the venture you've postponed? Would you invest more boldly and intelligently? Would you build assets instead of accumulating status symbols? Would you aim for influence instead of approval? Your answers reveal the size of your thinking. Here is a powerful principle. You do not get what you wish for. You get what you believe you deserve. If you believe you deserve average, you will unconsciously protect average. If you believe you deserve extraordinary impact, you will behave accordingly. Now let's connect everything to financial freedom at its highest level. Financial freedom is not merely having money. It is having choice to work because you want to, choice to invest in ideas you believe in, choice to spend time with those you value, choice to build legacy beyond your lifetime. Choice requires assets, requires discipline. Discipline requires belief. Belief requires big thinking. Small thinking produces consumption. Big thinking produces creation. Consumers spend income. Creators build systems. Systems produce leverage. Leverage produces scale. Scale produces wealth. Wealth, wisely stewarded, produces freedom. The difference between those who remain financially trapped and those who break free often comes down to one shift, from thinking about earning to thinking about building. Build skills that compound. Build networks that multiply opportunity. Build investments that grow while you sleep. Build systems that function without your constant supervision. When you begin thinking in terms of building rather than surviving, your entire strategy changes. You stop asking, how much can I make this month? And you begin asking, what can I create that grows for decades? That is big thinking applied to wealth. Now let us elevate this to legacy. Money alone is not legacy. Impact is legacy. Influence is legacy. Contribution is legacy. Big thinkers do not aim merely to accumulate. They aim to contribute at scale. When you increase your capacity, you increase your ability to serve. When you increase your income, you increase your ability to invest in others. When you increase your influence, you increase your ability to open doors. The magic of thinking big is not selfish. It is expansive. It benefits everyone connected to you. Your family benefits from your discipline. Your organization benefits from your vision. Your community benefits from your contribution. And future generations benefit from your foresight. But none of this happens accidentally. It begins with one internal decision. I will no longer think small about my potential. Let that sentence settle. Because once you decide that, your daily questions change. You begin asking, how can I grow my income by multiplying value? How can I invest strategically instead of emotionally? How can I lead with confidence rather than hesitation? How can I build assets that outlast effort? How can I surround myself with thinkers who stretch me? These questions reshape your trajectory. Remember this, life is not a lottery. It is a reflection of accumulated thinking. If you upgrade your thinking consistently, your life upgrades accordingly. And here's the final truth I want you to carry forward. Big thinking is not about ego. It is about expansion of possibility. It is about refusing to let invisible limits dictate visible results. It is about recognizing that your current circumstances are not your final definition. It is about choosing courage over comfort, vision over fear, action over delay, creation over consumption, contribution over complacency. When you think big, you act big. When you act big, you grow big. When you grow big, you earn big. When you earn big and invest wisely, you build wealth. When you build wealth with purpose, you create freedom. And when you create freedom, you create legacy. That is the magic. Not magic in the mystical sense, but magic in the transformational sense. The transformation that occurs when a human being decides to expand beyond inherited limits. So from this moment forward, refuse to think in ceilings, think in horizons. Refuse to measure yourself by yesterday's performance. Measure yourself by tomorrow's potential. Refuse to live reactively. Design proactively, because the size of your life will always mirror the size of your thinking. And when you choose to think big, consistently, boldly, intelligently, there is no predictable limit to what you can build.